I'll explain why, but this talk is different than the other ones. So my name is Cynthia Tom, and I'm the founding director of A Place of Our Own. And I just really wanted to welcome you guys in and thank you so much for being here, because like I said, you're part of what we call phase 4. So your participation is part of the journey that they're on. Okay. All right. Yay, Irene. So welcome again to A Place of Our Own. And it's A Place of Our Own in collaboration with 7Gen. And we'll go more into that more. And again, we're recording the session to use and share on YouTube, on our YouTube channel into perpetuity. And we hope that we're providing some medicine for all your souls today. So we do want to start with a land acknowledgement that we are coming to you from both Northern and Southern Valley Yokuts territory in the Central Valley. And then a couple of us are coming from Ramaytush Ohlone land, which is San Francisco. And if you ever refer to Indigenous, just realize that they were never discovered, that they were here and they're still here, and that the colonization is ongoing. And so one of the things we ask you to do is maybe, I know you're also busy, but think about getting involved. And there's a website called United States Department of Arts and Culture. Has nothing to do with the government, but they have a whole Honor Native Land section that is done by their Indigenous artists. And it's a free nonprofit for artists all over the United States. And I don't know if they're going all over the world yet. And then the other part, Cueponca brought this up, is Save Tesla Park, which is a park in the Central Valley. Is that right, Cueponca? That needs attention so that it doesn't become just a recreational area. It's actually native land that needs to be respected. So all the, if I mention any links during the talk, at the end, we're going to actually send you guys an email with all the different links, and then a link to watch this talk again if you want. So you don't have to keep track of it right now. So the agenda is just my welcoming and bringing you in. I'm going to introduce you to PAZ and Jilly, who will then give a little bit of their talks, because we're the 3 of us together ran this cohort. I'm going to talk a little bit about place, like how did it start? And then we're going to let the 8 artists give you their journeys, take a break. And if you're interested and want to stick around, we ask you to stay for a cup of tea and a chat, or whatever it is, a cocktail, whatever you want to drink, and chat with them and let them ask you questions too. So again, my name is Cynthia Tom, and I'm the founding director. I've been around over 32 years, but professionally, I've been a visual artist for 32 years. And I've been working as a community arts curator and practitioner for 18 years, mainly around social justice and healing for women. So just to introduce you briefly to A Place of Our Own, and we will, you're going to hear it affectionately called place most often. But the backbone question is, if you had a place of your own, what would it be? And it's full of culturally sensitive, artistic tools, and the community, so the growing group of women, to help heal each other from generational patterns of trauma. And we believe that by providing women with a place, a path, and creative tools to heal through the arts is the foundation for building the self-agency needed to build leadership and ensuring authentic community equity. Because without the healing, we don't believe that equity can really thrive. So it's really important for me to acknowledge some of our funders, and the 2 funders who've been with us the longest is California Arts Council, who's responsible for the Central Valley San Francisco connection this time. San Francisco Arts Commission has been with me since day 1 in 2009. Boys and Girls Club came in for this round, and we hopefully partnerships in the future do a little. And then I have to thank Asian American Women Artists Association for being our fiscal sponsor, which is absolute importance. And then the one person I really want to thank is Chris Matos, because he's been with me through the whole creation, the heartbreak, the miracles, the epiphanies of this whole thing, and provided many, many photos. And then we've had guidance and support by so many people, but it takes a village to do this work. And then we even have ancestral advisors. These are people who have passed, but we believe they're still watching out for us. So what I want to do now is introduce you to the 3 women supporting us today. And for the last 6 months, well, actually it's been the last year, PAZ Zamora, who I met in 2016, and Tavi Baker brought her in. Tavi's on the call too, as out in the audience. And PAZ has been with me since 2016, gone through, I think, three of the cohorts. And now she's helping me run her own in the Central Valley. And that was a dream of hers a couple of years ago. And then Jilly, I'll let PAZ introduce Jilly too, but Jilly's been a friend of mine for over 30 years. She was probably one of the first gallery owners and one of the only honest gallery owners I've ever worked with. And I'm just a heart of gold, but she has helped us as faculty. And she's been with this place journey since 2014. And grown in her own right into a leader. And then Katie on the left here was a cohort. She was from 2020, but she has stuck around and kept in touch with me. And she's been helping us push out our marketing, social media, and she's helping me with tech support today, which is really important. So that being said, PAZ, let me give you the floor. You're on mute, PAZ.
So before I get started, I just want to do a quick shout out to Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco. Tavi and I worked there. I worked there for 14 years. And Tavi, I don't know how many, but she got me into Boys and Girls Club. And so the connection continues. So that's how it works sometimes. Well, welcome to Livingston, California. And next slide. And welcome to 7Gen. And 7 Generations is in my home. It is grounded in social justice and community engagement. And through the events that we have helped support, having the space open to the community, the programs and the projects that we hope to do also in the future, we explore love, loss, longing, and living. And through the healing arts, I hope to facilitate a community sanctuary for emerging multi-generational BIPOC artists, especially low-income youth and women, to develop self-agency to grow, learn, and lead in their own lives, families, and communities. Next slide.
Did I miss your family? No, I didn't. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
As Cynthia said, I have been an alum of PLACE for 8 years, and keeper of this land for 7 generations, which was left to me by my mother when she passed. And I want to dedicate this space and also this talk, my talk. It's a dedication and love offering to all the women in my family, symbolized by these ancestors here of my great-great-grandmother, grandmother, and mother that came before us, and also that they sacrificed and went through a lot for the generations that are coming behind them. Next slide. A little bit about the land of 7 generations. My grandfather, Guadalupe Estrada, was a sharecropper and also in the Bracero program, and he owned 20 acres of land. And he had a practice of offering his children a piece of his property when they got married. And so my mother and father took him up on that offer. And 7 Gen was built next to my grandparents' land where I still live today. Next slide. When my mother was alive, she was my biggest supporter and active in PLACE. She came to all my artist talks, and I am thankful that she opened up her home and heart to our family's healing. In this pitch, we had 9 kids also in our family, and she was always busy keeping us all together. And she would always tell us that when we were little, she didn't have time to listen because she was always working. And that as she got older, that she had the time to listen, and she did. And so I'm just thankful for her presence. And in this picture, we're doing a place art making session in the home when she was alive with my sisters and nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, called Intuitive Collage. And you also see my mom and family members speaking at the place exhibition at the Marin Museum of Contemporary Art. So I felt like that energy of how we bring this back to our roots is very important at 7Gen. Next slide. It was a dream for me to have a space like 7Gen and to offer the experience of a place of our own to the women in my family and community. There is a great need for healing and reconnection in my family, and I also saw in the community, and art and culture is essential in that healing process. My hope is that 7Gen will inspire and encourage others to activate space, whether it's in their yards, homes, garages, churches, until we all have access to spaces in the community and our neighborhoods that inspire and bring us back together to fight for a better future. And having seen 7 generations in my own family and the similar patterns of addiction, pain, and harm that have been passed down through survival, my focus is to start through place. I've learned is to start with myself and to let that be part of my purpose in the world. And remembering that I came into this world as a whole being and I am not my ancestors' pain. Next slide. 7Gen and the launch of Place in the Valley would not have happened without the dedicated love and support and mentorship of Cynthia Tom, who, as you know, have seen in her work, is an amazing artist and again, founder of Place. She walks the talk, and she has been an inspiration for me and about the 100 other women that she has coached in Place. And when I mean coached in Place, I mean like calling her through some really tough times and having her talk you through the process of healing, and also me learning that to be able to hold space for myself, my family, and others that I work with in the community. I also want to acknowledge Jilly Andersen because she's a Place alum, and she came to do the tech and to provide some, but ended up helping support with the exhibition, actually ended up driving down on her own through every week, every Thursday. And sometimes when I had to work, she would actually open the space with my sister. So I felt very held and loved by her support. And again, Katie Kwan for just really helping us spread the word and tell our stories as Place. And also Deanne Glenn, who is an elder and mentor to our Place leadership circle around this particular project. And one thing about Deanne is she's like a mirror. She always helps us to look at ourselves first when issues came up around sharing our leadership. Next slide. I also want to thank Sasha for supporting childcare and the delicious meal prep for the women and the children over these past, I don't know, is it 5 months or so? And Zayana, my great niece, who is here today right now, she's not on screen, but for supporting childcare, tech, and setup. She's an amazing artist, and she's actually helping me right now with my installation piece. So thank you, thank you. Next slide. Thais, you didn't know I was going to include this, but I'm going to include it because I never worked at a Place. I work at the Community Arts Stabilization Trust in San Francisco, and they actually practice what they preach. We are all artists or creatives, and so Thais and the cast team and leadership has been 100% supportive of me modifying my schedule for these months to be able to be here, and also scheduling me to be able to do this project. And then on the right is my husband of 32 years for his generosity and patience, my Cohort, prodding and love. He is also an amazing poet and writer, and has been a support 100% along the way. Next slide. So Central Valley Place of Our Own artist residency at 7Gen. Again, I just want to before I introduce Jilly, I want to just thank each of them personally for holding space for me to have a place to come back to where I felt welcome, where I felt held and heard and loved, and also for doing that for each other. I want to thank the California Arts Council for extending the funding for us to begin this endeavor. And I also want to be very honest, it's not enough. There's so many hours that go into this project out of love. And so those funders who are coming forward, we want to thank you and also really encourage that we continue to support the work of PLACE, because it is, I feel, desperately needed. I'm talking about a town where I'm at where they don't even have an AA program for women. So basic things like that where women don't have the support, and if the women fall down, the children fall down, the families fall down, and the community is affected. And then I just want to go next slide. Again, my love to Jazz, Purla, next slide. To Cueponca, Xochitl, Luz, to Elvia, Marta, my sister Marta, and Anna, for them being part of this first inaugural cohort. And I wanted to end on these two pictures here of them as artists working together on their individual and collective on-site installation. The trust, the love, and the self-agency for their own work, but also for each other, was very inspiring. And many of us, we are family, biological family, but also we work together. Even if we're not biological family, we work together in the community. And so I just want to acknowledge that it really brought up for me, like, how do we really support each other as women, and that it's not a competition, that we are enough. When you're working with family members and we get triggered and we get upset and angry, that this is around being in control, or how we show up as our real selves and speak our truths to each other. This is not easy, and it's not all peaches and cream. There's a lot that goes to stay together. And so it's not that these are bad things, but what I'm learning is when I get triggered, this is a reminder that a part of me that is still healing and needs attention, and to think about the other person and where they're at. So thank you, each of you, for showing up today to support the Central Valley PLACE residency at 7 Gen. And I want to honor your healing journey, because together we can be stronger. And now I would like to introduce my friend and fellow PLACE alum, Jilly Andersen.
Thank you, Paz. Well, my name is Julie Andersen. I am an alumni and facilitator of A Place of Our Own. And I have 25 years experience as an independent art curator, gallery owner, arts educator, visual artist, and biodynamic cranial sacral practitioner in San Francisco and California. Next slide. I've worked with Cynthia in the arts for over 30 years and with PLACE for 10. I have participated in PLACE as both a cohort and a facilitator. My experiences with PLACE have allowed me to acknowledge and accept my troubled childhood and chosen life, as well as given me the tools to turn my attention from shame and victimhood into gratitude, love, and confidence. I am becoming a leader. 5 years ago, if you would have told me I would be supporting programming for PLACE or 7 Gen in the Central Valley, or speaking in front of a crowd, I would have laughed and said, that's crazy. And here I am right now, surrounded by supportive leaders and stepping into leadership again and speaking to you. Through PLACE, I met PAZ, and both of us were a part of the same cohorts. I witnessed PAZ gathering and implementing her leadership skills, as well as confidence. And these last 3 years, I listened to her dream and watched as she created 7 Gen into reality. The fortitude and bravery in opening and extending her family home to her community is beautiful. A dream blossoming has a multitude of layers. soul searching, and vulnerabilities attached. Beauty in all its iterations, dimensions, and processes. Thank you, PAZ, for opening your home and inviting us into and onto your ancestral lands and experiencing 7th Gen as a safe and nurturing gathering place. And thank you for your mentorship. Next slide. Being a part of and a support of PAZ, 7th Gen, and Cynthia PLACE, I was there as PAZ and Cynthia learned about each other, navigating and implementing PLACE programming at 7th Gen. Healthy communication is complicated and sometimes not straightforward. We all carry expectations, and the execution of ideas and content can get messy. These leaders really embrace what they preach, holding space for each other, not just when things are easy, but in doubtful, messy moments as well. They plowed through hours of logistics, content, conflict, aha moments, and just problem solving with patience, humbleness, commitment, and love. They both knew when to give space and when to give support. This is true commitment. PAZ and Cynthia allowed themselves, each other, and everyone involved to explore questions and doubts, as well as triumphs and insights. Thank you both for showing me what beautiful, healthy communication and negotiation is and can be, and that growing pains are a natural part of the process and are just moments in time. As I drove to Livingston weekly, I've had the honor to get to know all of these fantastic superstar women of the 7th Generation PLACE Central Valley cohort. It's made my heart sing supporting these women through this residency as they embark with sometimes joy, sometimes curiosity, sometimes tears, and sometimes resistance on their individual journeys of awakening and acknowledging not just their places in the world, but their places within themselves. This program is not for the faint of heart. It takes courage to answer the question of what is a place of your own and what would it be and look like and feel, because the answer to this question is a deep dive into vulnerable, familial, and personal patterns, untapped creative processes, art making, as well as, at the end of the day, putting this all into words and a talk. I know from working with them, listening to their stories, and watching them build their pieces and places that this exploratory and extraordinary experience will follow them for years to come. Next slide. These women are in process. I am truly and humbly blessed and excited for the spark of self-love and acceptance that I see has been kindled. Thank you again, Cynthia, PAZ, and all you fantastic superstar women of the Central Valley for allowing me to be a part of your ongoing journey. I am amazed at all the gifts I have received. In short, these women and their journeys has changed how I feel and look at myself. And I am looking forward to supporting the next iteration of PLACE, where current alumni will be meeting with PAZ alumni in 2024. A special thank you to Deanne for your deep support and insights, as well as time. You are an angel. And to Katie Kwan for your steady and stealthy back end support for PLACE. And to my kids, Ling Ling, Mei Mei, and Jackson, who showed me that unconditional love is a thing and that you can fall in love over and over again. And to everybody else who's been supportive, especially on the ground at Livingston. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Those are Jill's trees of life. Okay, so welcome. So what I'm going to do right now is share with you just a little bit of the background of PLACE so you understand and appreciate what these women just walked into and have walked through. First of all, this is a bunch of firsts for us. For PLACE, it's the first time we've done a full-on collaboration with another organization where they weren't just watching us, but with PAZ with 7th Gen is actually complete participation. First time PLACE has gone to the Central Valley, and in a very much needed area. And it's the first time we've done a hybrid delivery where I was actually on Zoom, and we were piloting the whole idea of working with a group at 7gen, and it worked beautifully. Central Valley women, for the first time they've really gathered in this particular circle, and we're introduced to this arts-based healing together. And this is the first time they're sharing this artistic journey with you in public. And the first together with you, the audience, you're doing cleaning and healing our collective wounds in community together. So for A Place of Our Own, what's behind it? How did it start? Why did it start? And basically the place workshops are inspired by the art and thought processes that I use to heal my own ancestral trauma. And it's also based on feedback that we got from community. And I wanted to say thank you to Tavi Baker, because I know you're on there, because in 2016, some of her feedback was, I want more art making. So in 2018, we ended up incorporating art into every single aspect of what we're teaching. So, and then we teach what we need to heal. So one really important thing as we go forward, we talk about trauma a lot. And the way Place sees trauma is from Gabor Mate, and also from a study of epigenetics. And that's that trauma is what happens inside you when something happened to you or your family. So trauma starts as a coping mechanism, but it starts to get twisted if you don't look at it. And if you're talking about colonization, forced migration, and patriarchy, it's what you do with your body. Now, the exciting thing is, since it happens inside you, and this is epigenetics, so family trauma gets passed down through your DNA. But that means that you can actually heal the trauma. It's not the things that happen to you, it's how you take it in and how you work with it. And that's the basic tenet with Place, is changing your attitude towards your reaction to what happened. So just in a nutshell, how Place started, a lot of my paintings, this particular painting told me that I need to research my Asian American history, and also myself. I had to dig deep. It's called anthropologic dig. And my paintings tend to do that. They tend to tell me what to do. I paint intuitively. I don't plan them ahead. And this one, I started to dig around in my family history, and I was trying to figure out why I didn't have confidence, even in my 30s. So this is a picture of my maternal grandmother, Ham Shimak, and she was, I found out, and my mom didn't even know this, but we found out that in 1923, at the age of 20, my grandfather, who was born in the US, went there and purchased her in China and brought her back here. And basically she was a servant. She had 7 kids, my mom being one of them, but there was a lot of pain in her being sold. And I started to do some artwork around that, because I realized her pain might be what I'm feeling. It might not be my pain. And it's really helped me to share the story. So this was the first mugshot I painted of her. Well, it's the mugshot of her mugshot. And I started doing art around using her imagery to tell the stories. And I've done stuff on both coasts. And I found out that sharing these stories through art pieces, like these are little pillows that help people to want to take care of her, take care of whoever's on these pictures. I learned that starts to heal something inside me. So learning her story brought my feminism out. And this painting is about gathering feminine energies, not just women, but just feminine energy, because I think the power and the answers in the world are if we can gather our feminine side and make it powerful. So this painting told me I need to start doing things to help women and gather them. And that's kind of where Place came out of. I wanted ways for women to stop fighting and being competitive and seeing each other as the enemy, and help women see each other as the ally. So from 2009 till now, it's evolving. And in 2009, it started as an artist in residency at the De Young Museum. And I asked a question of these women, these artists, if you had a place of your own, what would it be? And I thought it would be a simple question, but what it ended up being was, it was the beginning of them letting their stories out of trauma, of abuse, of before they could get to what they wanted for themselves. And that was, for me, it ended up being a question about self-agency. And now, since 2009, then 2022, last year, coming full circle, the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco, the DeYoung, asked me to do a talk about how I use cultural heritage and healing as art mediums. So I use that platform, and this is on their YouTube channel, to bring in our Place of Our Own cohorts, that the alumni that wanted to also give a talk about how they use cultural heritage and healing in their artwork. So that's on our YouTube channel, which I will send you links of. So there's 3 ways we can do place now. The first one is at 1890 Bryant Street Studios in San Francisco. We actually have done it most years in person there. But because of the pandemic, we went virtual. So we learned that we could be online, and it works. It's a little difficult if you're the one leading it, but you can reach people all over the world this way. And then now with 7gen, we've done it hybrid. So we've hosted people that couldn't make it to 7gen. Like there's one artist on here, Elvia, she had to drive 3 hours to get there. And sometimes it was impossible. So I was on Zoom along with whatever students couldn't make it, participants, and then PAZ hosted the rest of them in person at 7gen. So just in a nutshell, I wanted you to know for the last almost 5 months, the phases for a Place of Our Own. And I'm using the term hungry ghost here. Hungry ghost is a broad Asian term that refers to an insatiable being, someone who's insatiable. It's longing. I call it chronic heartache. But we look at beliefs that hold you back, and we look at ancestral family patterns, and you begin to see that the things that bring you heartache may not be yours. They might be patterns long in your ancestry and your generations back. And at that time, we call it our wound cleaning. And PAZ is great with metaphors, but she said, you have to get in and see the wound and clean out all the dirt in there before you can heal. And it sounds terrible, but that's what we do when we start exploring. And that's when Jilly said that this program's not for the faint of heart, but we find that it works by jumping in and doing it in community. Then we have art projects to help release those hungry ghosts, help release the chronic heartache, because you realize those patterns don't serve you any longer, and they actually have nothing to do with you. So it's practicing self-acceptance and forgiveness. And that's a big piece of healing. And then we start using found objects to create a place. And found objects is something I grew up using. I didn't know it was because we were really poor, but my mom and I, up until she passed away when she was 92, we still love finding found objects. Things come to you magically to create work, and it's just using your intuition. So we use the art to claim aspirations and grow self-agency, and the proclaim is where you are right now. You're part of our proclaiming what our place is. So the women are going to be talking tonight about if they had a place of their own, what would it be? So you artistically learn how to speak for what you want without fear of judgment. And you guys are all part of that tonight, so thank you. So the one thing I wanted to say, and then we'll go right into the artist talk, was when I talked about firsts, this is a first. This is an unusual artist talk, because usually artist talk takes place after the artwork's already completed. But because of this hybrid, we had to have them speak while their work is still in progress. So I admire them for being able to really think things through without having a finished art piece. So we hope that you will help us doubly celebrate their courage in presenting this to you, and their commitment to their own healing. And they're doing it to help their family and community. They're already looking at ways to help community with this. So what's going to happen now is we're going to go for about 60 minutes while the artists share their journeys. And then we're going to take a short break. and ask you if you wouldn't mind coming back for tea and a chat. And we really encourage conversation. If anything strikes you, if anything catches your attention, that's your intuition. And we encourage you to act on that and ask questions about it. So that being said, first up, these are the artists right here, and PAZ showed you pictures of all of them. And we're including Jilly and PAZ on here as well. So the first up is going to be Elvia Oleo. And Elvia, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. I want to start off by thanking this amazing cohort of developing artists. Thank you to my cohort sisters for allowing me to walk with you all through this journey. I'm truly honored and blessed. I want to give a special thanks to our mentors and leaders, Cynthia, PAZ, and Julie. You all did amazing guiding us in this process that at times felt challenging, especially by giving us grace as we navigated difficult conversations and reflections. Thank you to my family and my friends for allowing me to overshare at times. Selena, Lupe, Yohari, Derek, thank you for showing up, and to my supportive colleagues for attending. Lastly, thank you everyone for spending your evening with us and allowing us the opportunity to share our journeys. My name is Elvia Oleo. I am a queer Indigenous Mixtec woman. I was born and raised in the Central Valley from farm working immigrant parents. I am a poet, I am a writer, and an activist. My life work and commitment is towards the liberation of all peoples. I graduated from Stanislaus State in Ethnic Studies and minored in sociology. And as you can see, I am a mother. My son's name is Yoviko, which means moon cloud in my Indigenous language. My son is and was by far my biggest aspiration as I navigated through a lot of these themes. Next slide. The picture in the middle is of my siblings and I. I am the youngest of 9 children. I was about 3 years old at the time of this picture, and it was taken in Tijuana, Mexico, when I was brought to the States illegally. The picture on the right is of my mother. My mother is a beautiful, strong, and powerful force. When I was young, my mother would make me clothes out of old fabric she'd find around the house. She would make long, beautiful skirts of the brightest colors she could find. Despite her limited resources, she always found a way to make something out of nothing. She taught me the importance of using my hands. To the left is my father, who entered the country during the Bracero program. For folks that don't know what the Bracero program is, it was an executive order called the Mexican Farm Labor Program, established in 1942. This agreement between Mexico and the United States permitted millions of young Mexican men to work legally in the United States on short-term labor contracts. My father spent the majority of his young and adult life migrating in and out of the US-Mexican border. When I was 10 years old, my parents left to Mexico with the hopes of coming back, but after many failed attempts, they never did. I have spent my young years questioning why my parents could not see me and why there were borders that limited us. Couldn't they have seen that my parents were good people, that I needed them, that they love me? These institutions have taken a lot of me, my ability to love without the fear of abandonment, the fear of dreaming, the guilt, the sadness, the bitterness, and the anger. Next slide. Self-agency and perseverance showed up through community action and organizing. I have had the privilege to meet amazing people along the way. Most recently, my work was centered around environmental justice work, specifically access to safe, clean drinking water. Many communities in the Central Valley are forced to live with water contamination, with no to limited resources. This helped inspire a larger and deeper question of, if I had a place of my own, what would it look like? Next slide. As part of our time with PLACE, we were asked to write our little self a letter. When I look at the little girl who needed to be loved, guided, and cared for, I think of this Elvia. I think of the sadness and shame I have carried for many years. The need for little Elvia to forgive herself for things she was never meant to carry. I think of the loneliness that created a big void in me. I wish I could hold her and tell her I love her and that she did not, and she does not walk alone. I wish she knew how proud I am of her and that she is beautiful and perfect and that she didn't do anything wrong. I would give her the ability to dream, the voice to speak, and the eyes to experience the world. I would love her on days when she wished herself away. I would remind her that life would be as beautiful as she hoped for. Next slide. My piece is called A World Without Borders. A place of my own is a place that has no limits, where colonization does not limit us. A place of my own is borderless, welcoming, and loving. A place Mother Earth is cared for, loved, and protected. A place of my own is one my son can run free, create, and build. One where he can connect with his ancestors. A place that is beautiful, where he can use his hands and his feet, where he can run, dream, and imagine. A place where water runs freely, open, and clean for everyone. One where capitalism does not limit us. Where children are not left broken by these man-made systems. My piece was made out of papier-mâché, cotton balls, poster board, grass, moss, rocks, and so much more. I decided to create this piece because it reminded me of the mountains of Oaxaca, where my parents are from. It felt like home to me. It allowed me to imagine a whole new reality, one where I can coexist with my parents and ancestors. Un mundo sin fronteras. I included the monarch butterflies because it's a symbol of the natural and beautiful process of migration. It's a reminder that beauty can exist even through so much darkness in the evil of colonization. Next slide. During one of my Intuit card activities, without thinking about it, I put a picture of me and my son together. Days after, I sat with this piece, and all I could think about was how beautiful it was loving him and how parenting him gave me the opportunity to reparent myself. When I see him, I see myself, how I also deserve the same love. I think about the responsibility I have, the commitment to myself and to my son. For the next generations, as we share space and we continue to talk about what a place of our own looks like for each and everyone here, I challenge you to think of what a place of your own looks like to you, without fear, without limitations, without doubt, without conditioning. Let's imagine together, create, and build. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvia. Cueponca, thank you so much. This is beautiful. Cueponca, did you want to be on camera first, or do you want to go to the slides first?
Well, yeah. Oh gosh, so much for your incredible strength, Elvia. I just love everything. I resonated with so much of what you said. We can go to the slides, Cynthia.
Okay.
Whew.
Yeah, Elvia. Oof.
You know, it's like this reverberation of ancestral pattern shifting. Iran, I completely agree with you. And we're evolving into something new. So we're creating it together. This is a love letter to unceded Northern Valley Yokuts territories in the Central Valley. Thank you so much, Boss, for inspiring it. Thank you, Cynthia, for creating the vision of bringing us together and founding a place. And thank you so much, Jilly, for your incredible support throughout the way. And to my fellow sisters, you inspire me every day. This has been a dream come true. I asked myself consistently, how might we collectively unlearn the layers of internalized colonization? How do we know what we don't know about how these layers of internalized colonization might live in us? These questions uncovered more layers for me. And I asked myself, what would it be like to love every part of me? This question first appeared a few years ago in my heart during a sexual liberation course that I took with Ann Nguyen, and then resurfaced again and again in place. And I had to sit with it, especially when we investigated and looked at our hungry ghosts, the ways in which these consistent heartaches, as Cynthia calls them, keep showing up in us. How we carry these rocks and amplify this internalized colonization. Hello, everybody. My name is Cueponca Sandoval. I am a mother, a scholar, and an artivista. I'm an associate professor of ethnic studies with a concentration on Native American and Mexican Indigenous studies at Stanislaus State. And I will share a little bit of my journey here with you today. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, this is a love letter to the Northern Valley Yokuts territories and the relationship that I have with the Native peoples of this land as an ancestral offering towards co-liberation, because our liberation is tied and bound with one another. I cannot be free unless the land that I occupy, the waters, the airs, the Native peoples that have stewarded this land for time immemorial are also free. And so what does that mean? It means that we're interdependent and interconnected, and that our liberation is bound with each other's. Part of place for me was, especially in creating art, as we looked at our ancestral family patterns and our hungry ghosts, part of me was about what is it to document joy against the backdrop of disdain in a place of her own, and carrying these forces in at the same time as a conversation with one another, the pain, the suffering, the deep layers of creating consciousness with the places of possibility. And what can this give birth to, not just as an individual, but as a collective, witnessing each other's growth, each other's tears, and each other's reflections. Next slide, please. So here are some of my rocks that I carried. I literally was inseparable with them. I even took them with me in the shower. How did I do that? I'm not sure. But these rocks faded into my skin. And these were some of the consistent heartaches that I thought of at that moment. You know, how do we perceive beauty? What are these standards of beauty? And how do we internalize those messages about not being enough, about just being self-centered and maybe perhaps a failure? And so I look at these and I look at myself and I say, how can I create this place of my own as I'm consistently supported by such a wonderful community of people who are here with us today? Next slide, please. So I think about that internalized colonization. I think about it as like a vacinilla, an olla de barro. In this case here, you see a ceramic cup that is being poured into, right? This may or may not be coffee, but what are the things that we have been fed? What, since before our birth and these ancestral patterns, what have we ingested? Sometimes voluntarily and sometimes involuntarily. And I think about these layers of colonization that live in me. Next slide, please. And then when I was doing my Intuit cards, I thought, how can I draw from this fountain of ancestral memory, of my heritage, of the fauna and foliage that continues to permeate in the places where my family is from? I look at the maguey plant that releases this quiote and tells us that it's ready to reproduce. If we chop down the quiote in time, we can excavate it, and this agua miel that comes and resurfaces every night. What is this fountain of understanding that we are as ancestral beings on this earth that's interconnected with the land? I made this Intuit card with places that I visited and that I experienced with my own son. To ask that question, what do we know? How do we know what we don't know? And maybe keep asking questions. Next slide, please. And one of the images that I remember seeing in a dream, and then in my own studies and looking for the Codex Verhaltenmeyer and looking at the ways in which people are presented. Here we have a person who has their rolls of skin on their body. And it's a privilege to be able to give birth. It's a privilege to be able to operate and live in our bodies unapologetically, the ways in which they carry ourselves. And this fountain of blood sustaining love that comes out of me and making art out of it, unapologetically being who I am as a smile starter. And Place has inspired these things in me. Next slide, please. So I created a skirt that I put together. I had a drawer of old huipiles that I've had over the years. Some of them had been stained. Some of them are too small for me to wear anymore. And I kept thinking, well, I'll take them out when I lose weight. I'll take them out when I'm ready to wear them. And that day never came. And in fact, it's going the other direction. So I thought to myself, the heck with this. I'm going to create this skirt, cut up these pieces and these expectations that I have of myself and wear them on my own terms, accept them for who I am right now at this moment. That was a really big step for me. And as I process the ways in which I see myself, the ways in which I perceive others see me, and the ways in which others have told me that they see me, it really shatters so many of these layers of internalized colonization for me to deeply accept the person that I am today. So if I had a place of my own, next slide, please, I would bring up my little girl, this little girl on this unceded native land. And I would tell her, I'm here, little one. You're the one I've been waiting for. And I would dedicate this song to her, this song about water, about bringing in and calling in the water. The place of my own would be a place where all waters would be free of contamination. The waters that live inside of us, the waters that live outside of us. A place of my own would be free to sing. Calling in the waters in each and every one of us, the inner children that like to play and splash around without being afraid of getting wet. Agua nieve se ha perdido. Su mamá la anda buscando. ¿Quién la ha visto por ahí? ¿Quién la ha visto por ahí? Agua nieve lloviznando. Agua nieve lloviznando. To all those inner children, your face is like a garden. Your lips are like a rose. And in the center of your being, you're the most beautiful flower. Tu carita es un jardín y tus labios una rosa, y en el medio de tu cuerpo, y en el medio de tu cuerpo, eres la flor más hermosa, eres la flor más hermosa. Tlasokamati we tlaltik baktonansi tlali wanahekatsi ni wanatsi. Tlasokamati, tlasokamati we. Yours truly, Cueponca.
Ooh, okay. Thank you, my dear. I have to catch my breath. That's amazing. Thank you, Cueponca. Maybe at the end you can sing some more. Okay, Anna. Take a deep breath, Anna.
Thank you, Cuepo. Thank you so much for that beautiful song. Gracias por tus canciones. Gracias por tus lindas palabras. Gracias por ser tú.
You might want to share. I'm sorry. You might want to share that she was your guys' teacher, right?
Yeah, so I just want to first start off by saying thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Elvia. Thank you, Cueponca. Thank you, Purla. Thank you, Jazzy. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, PAZ. Thank you, Zayana. Thank you for allowing us this beautiful space. Thank you for sharing this beautiful place with us. And piggybacking off of Cuepo, I want to first start off by saying that, yes, I was introduced to this beautiful cohort through Cuepo. She is a beautiful soul that I saw a reflection of myself in her the first time that I was in her class. There's invisible connections and invisible ties to all of the people all around us. And I approached her one day after class because I remembered that she actually came to me in a dream before she was even my professor, before I even knew who she was. And I know that nothing is coincidence, and I thank you, Cuepo, for being you, and for the first time ever. It's gonna sound insane, but she was the first professor that I've ever had in my life that was a Mexican, indigenous, brown-haired, beautiful hair woman that I saw myself in, a reflection of me and her. And I approached her and I thought it was going to be really strange and really weird that, you know, at the end of the class to tell my professor, hey, I had a dream about you, that you were going to come to this town. And I was hoping, crossing my fingers, that she didn't think that I was a complete weirdo, because that's how I receive my messages, is through dreams. And I'm so honored that I was able to get to know her. And I'm so honored that I know all of you women. And anyhow, I'd like to start off by saying as well that I'm thankful for you all, and I'm thankful for PLACE, and thank you for introducing me to this beautiful place. My name is Ana Noyola, and I come from bountiful lands filled with beautiful culture, surrounded by mountains, deserts, jungles, oceans, and lifelong traditions. I was born in a pueblito in Mexico. This pueblito is known as Villa Nicolás Romero, Mexico. This is my homeland, my home country. Here, traditions have been passed down orally, generation after generation. I was born on Mexico's Revolution Day. It's a day, if you guys don't know, that is still celebrated in Mexico for breaking free from some of the chains of colonization that was brought into Mexico, in my home country. A day that was fought for the honor of social justice and freedom there to this day. And I am finding myself, and I'm finding my way, and PLACE has been a beautiful place for me to dig deep into who I am and into my roots. I now am realizing that I am a mestiza woman, and I'm finding my way back to my roots and my relationship to this life. I am a mama to a beautiful little boy who chose me to be his teacher in this plane of existence that we all reside in. And I carry that with such great honor. He came to me in a dream as well when I was pregnant and he was in my belly. And it was a beautiful, beautiful manifestation of what one of my life purposes is here on this earth, is to be his teacher and to guide him as well. And beyond my skin color and the family that I was born into, I now recognize myself as an Indigenous woman who, for a while there, I feel like I've lost my way and forgotten a part of who I was after living so far away from my native homeland. I was brought here to this country and walked through the deserts with my mother when I was 3 years old. So for me, remembering myself, I still close my eyes and have images and pictures of cactus and plants and desert landscapes, eucalyptus trees, beautiful connections that nature surrounds me. For a while there, I felt like growing up here, I felt like this flower that was picked and planted in a completely different alien landscape. But through these beautiful women and through nature, I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering that I've always been guided by nature and that I've never truly been alone. My ancestors have been hard at work in helping me reconnect to my true self, and along with beautiful people who I've met on my journey, who have planted these seeds of remembrance. And I'm learning to remember to water these seeds every single day. It's so easy to forget and so easy to be stuck between two worlds. And for those who don't understand, and for those who do, it's a beautiful place to hold that space together, because it's a place that feels lonely sometimes, so full of just not knowing sometimes quite where you belong, but remembering now is such a beautiful thing. And I'm learning to remember to water these seeds every single day. I'm remembering that I am a daughter of the sun and of the moon and of this earth, and I'm related to all and alive because of everything that sustains my life, and completely dependent on the sacred spirits that give me life. All of these rites of passage have been taking me deeper into knowing myself a little bit more. But I know that if I really want to be in service of the true greater purpose of my life, I have to continue to water and remember who I am, where I come from, and honor my ancestors and their lineage that continues to live deep inside of me. The memory of the warriors that have been here before us is in our blood and in my blood. I surrender with great respect to all the carriers and keepers of tradition. And I also consider myself a translator in many ways, not only helping my family as the eldest daughter with worldly translation, but also decoding and finding my way through the wisdom that my family lines carry. And I know that this great mystery is holding space for us all to remember what our short time here on earth is for. And I feel that we are all here to ultimately help one another, love one another, teach one another, and learn really from one another. But above all, for me, nature has been my greatest teacher. And when Cynthia asked us to share what a place of our own would be like, I closed my eyes and my mind was flooded with images of nature and of plants. And I just remember one time praying and thinking and hoping that I could get an answer to some questions that I had for myself. And as part of the exercise, one of the exercises that Cynthia gave us through PLACE was to write down, what were these baggages and these weights that were holding us all down. And one of them for me was trust. Growing up, it's very difficult to trust people, being so far away from family and just having your immediate family and not knowing who really you could trust on and rely on. And I remember one day sitting down and praying and asking if I could trust this process. And I remember messaging Cynthia and my cohort sisters and sending them a picture, because funny enough, that morning I looked in my closet and I found this rock in my shoe that said trust. And it sounds so coincidental, but it was so strange that that happened to me and when it happened to me. And I thank Place for giving me the space to be able to make these connections that continue to guide me in this life. And as far as my art piece, when asked what a place of my own would be like, a place of my own would be a space that is up in the sky among the clouds, amongst the trees, a place surrounded by green, lush hills and 1,000 different colored flowers. A place of my own would be a place in time where all human beings feel free, a place where no borders exist, a world that is a utopia, a community of beauty, and a world where we all collectively help one another and tap into connections we all have with our Mother Earth, a place where we can walk, a place where we can talk to the trees and ask for their advice and their wisdom, but that they can actually clearly answer. I know that they do that now for me, but a place of my own would be one where it would be easier. I could hear them, actually physically manifest them and speak to me. And it would be a heavenly place for me, a place where we know no pain, but only kindness, love, and light, something that I feel like the world deeply lacks. And a place where women are giving the honor and the respect that they deserve, a place where women feel safe to be whomever they want to be, and a place where children are protected from all harm and evil of this world, and a place where we never lose, where we would never lose our loved ones physically, and a place where we can speak to them. And a place of my own would be a place where love is unbound forever, and we all love one another and treat one another with respect. And I want to share a piece of this video that I uploaded, and it's my art piece, and I chose a very thin veil of white linen hanging from the tree, and for me that symbolizes this plane of existence with the spirit world. I feel such a strong connection that even though my ancestors are no longer here, my aunts, my grandmother, my tia, who means so much to me, I still feel them so close. And that linen sheet that's blowing in the wind reminds me so much of their presence, that they may not physically be here, but they're here in spirit. And I feel them every day. And I just want to share as well that when I chose my place and my piece for Place on PAZ's land, I chose and I gravitated towards this tree. And at first I didn't know what this tree was. And later on, PAZ mentioned to me that it's actually a pomegranate tree. And I continue to make these beautiful connections with the earth and with Mother Nature. And I looked up what the significance is of a pomegranate tree. And I guess pomegranate trees carry a lot of feminine love and feminine wisdom. And I don't think that that's a coincidence that that happened to me, and that that happened on this land with all of these place sisters surrounding. And I just want to say thank you to all, and thank you for the space, Cynthia, and thank you, Cuepo, and thank you, everyone. Gracias, Kamati.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for being so open and authentic. So next up is Jazz.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Jazz. Just to go off on everybody, I want to thank place. I want to thank the organizers, and I want to thank the sisterhood that has grown through the 7th gen. And I also want to thank those that I have not met yet, but I know have been an integral part of growing place. Um, my name is Jazz Diaz. I live in Merced. I'm in the Central Valley. I'm a Central Valley based artist. I'm a muralist. I'm an illustrator. I'm a printmaker. So overall, I'm an artist. um, to knowing to be part of, or I guess being able to attend this residency program, I I honestly saw it as an artist residency and like just an amazing opportunity. But even before that, seeing it as an artist residency, in my community in Merced, there had been and there has been a need to start a women's group. And that was something that I kept needing and being drawn towards, to the point where I was like, I guess we're just gonna have to figure out how to do this ourselves. But there was a lot of hesitation, because it's hard to start something like that. And running into Paz and Marta for the Miwoks, I guess during a march for the Miwoks' rights for federal recognition, and through Indigenous Peoples Day, and then finally the connection with Cueponca place came together. And throughout this program, I guess I've been learning a lot of terms that I guess I've been seeking ways of how to incorporate them. And a part of that has been through ancestral traumas, ancestral shifters, hungry ghosts. And I feel between each project that we've come together, I've been able to sort of create and also build and heal for myself. And I think that being an artist, and I sometimes use the term community artist, because I paint murals in the community. I do workshops with youth orgs and nonprofits, and I go to the schools. And a lot of the times it's just having to dive in, because one, it hasn't existed here before, or I haven't understood it before. So we're just creating it as it goes. And a lot of the times it's having this space of reassurance, because you have to reassure your community. And through place, I felt like this was a sense of stepping back, and it was a step for me to work on myself, and to have a support of not just the facilitators, shout out to Cynthia, Julie, and Paz, but an intergenerational community here in the Central Valley. And that has been a big part of the work that I have had the opportunity to do in place. But at the same time, I have also, I think I'm still learning. And for the project, to think of a place of our own, I just kind of jumped in here. I gave myself some background of what I do, but I should have also mentioned that I'm originally from LA. I was born in LA, and my parents are from El Salvador. They came to the U.S. During El Salvador's Civil War in between the 1980s and when it ended in the 90s, I believe 94 or 92. Um, and so a big part of my parents immigrating here was also like, it was a sense of safety, of leaving war for them, but for my, and also creating opportunities. But it was also a sense of having a struggle with identity, because although I grew up in a city that had like a sense of multiculturalism, and it had its own history and its own struggles um, in different neighborhoods, it was always hard to see myself and to love myself over a big shield of colonialism and white supremacy. And moving to the Central Valley, it was, I didn't realize how comfortable it was to grow up in the city. But I've been living in Merced for almost 12 years now, and I did my young adult life here. And so a lot of that has it's I love the Central Valley, but it's different out here, and it's hard out here, and a lot of the times it's isolating in the Central Valley. And going back to a place of my own, the first thing that I started sketching down was a literal space, because a few of my community members in Merced, we've always dreamed of having an autonomous space, a physical space, a building, a place where we can create, organize, do music, do art, have a sense of independency outside of like a construct of funding, of resources, of nonprofits. It was something that those seeds are still being planted, and I should mention I'm currently in the space that I created, and I wanted to feel something physical. And the more I kept diving into, I kept having to separate myself about the big picture of seeing it as a sense of where this belongs, but how do I belong in this? And it started from coming into like, what got me into art? Why did I use art? Art, I've been doing art and creating and imagining since I was a kid. And a big part of that was because it was a way that I coped. It was a way that I escaped. Um, it was hard for my parents. Uh, they were surviving, but at the same time, the Civil War had hurt them. It had taken many lives, and it was something that it's not really something you can leave behind. My mom didn't want to leave her country behind, and the more I started realizing, they brought a lot of not just the trauma, but a lot of the patriarchal like senses that we're allowed to live with as women. and and I it's not until like now that I'm a mother to a daughter, I realize I don't want to live like that. I don't want to teach my daughter those things, and I resent it, and I don't want to pass that sense of resentment. And so for me, art is a way of exploring. And so it's still in development and still building it. But an intention that I have is that I I feel that the viewer can come into the space and sort of have that moment of exploration, creativity, a sense of safety, of meditation when you walk in here, filled with color, filled with texture and movement. And I use a lot of plant metaphors, because I really I honor the earth, and I'm always inspired by the earth, and there's a lot of things that I sometimes are not intentional, they're just intuitive. And I think with that, um, yeah, I think I'm done there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz. Speak so comfortably. Thank you, Jazz, for sharing that. And for those of you who, well, you haven't seen her pictures of or any of theirs, when we send out a follow-up email to you, we will have photos of their finished art pieces so you can see, and even some of their in-process pieces, so you can see what they're talking about. But Jazz is actually inside the piece in PAZ's 7 Gen space that she's building. But thank you, thank you for sharing that, Jazz. So next up is Purla.
Hello everyone. Hi, my name is Purla Montiel, and I was introduced to A Place of Our Own by Jazz. So thank you, Jazz. Thank you, everyone who is responsible for A Place of Our Own. The timing could not have been more perfect. And that is what I believe.
Let me get to you. Okay. All right, Purla.
So this is my my installation piece called Light as a Feather. Next slide. So the inspiration, what inspired me to dig deeper? So this is the process of what I went through. When I was coming up with the concept, I was given the opportunity to talk about myself and what my personal choices were through the creation of these Intuit cards, which is the first picture we see. And in the middle, I painted a gouache painting, flowers that resembled what my grandmother's wallpaper looked like. I was constantly reminded of my grandmother, along with a bit of myself, and things that represented peace, and most importantly, what had brought me peace. I thought that things that would help me take my mind off of the heaviness from my mind and in my heart. The last photo shown is a picture of a love letter to myself. Writing this love letter to myself became so emotional, and I know that was a part of my healing process. That was my way to use my voice. Next slide. So this is my process. My concept of my art piece was to bring forth what I experienced. So when I saw these light bulbs, I knew I wanted to incorporate the concept of light into my art piece. This represents light. And when I mean by light, I mean the one that contradicts the heavy, the unpleasant feelings, the thoughts of being brought down, the weight caused by this heaviness. Next slide. So creating a place of my own. We were given the question, if I had a place of my own, what would it be? Well, let me tell you, if I had a place of my own, it would represent light, peace, healing. This piece is dedicated to the light that exists. Where there is darkness, there is light shining through that veil of darkness. This light is healing, tranquil, and calming. I was compelled to show the light that demonstrated my take on illumination. This piece reflects on my experiences, life, and personal healing. Next slide. This is my work in progress. This piece was created because within the last couple of years, I had endured a great loss in my family. My mother passed away in 2020. There are certain things that remind me of her. I combined elements of what reminded me of her and what I experienced the years later. I had a domino effect. I learned to accept loss, failure, and the deterioration of my mental health. I had to bring forth the concept of healing, warmth, and overall calm. My duration at a place of our own has started the process to re-examine my identity, life, and purpose to create. I am a continuing student working towards an art major. I began to question, where do I fit in? How can I make a difference? I know that I'm not the only one who has gone through a loss or suffered trauma. I want to remind myself that no matter what, I have myself to take care of and the right to love myself. So thank you everyone for joining today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Purla. So fun to evolve. Okay, so next up we have Martha.
Okay. I'm gonna do it a little different from them because I didn't do the slides because it's just too much. It was just too much. And I wanted to focus on my piece. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to show what I made, the art piece. And mostly I wanna focus on the art piece more than the other stuff because 6 minutes isn't that long. And what I'm gonna do is play the recording because I have a lot of anxiety when I speak. And it isn't just the anxiety, it's just the anxiety that I'm gonna be crying and crying because I've been crying for like a week and I'm pretty tired already. So I take a break. And anyways, okay. So I don't know how to flip it around to where, like if I go like this, it's so, let's see.
We can see it. It looks fantastic.
Okay, so it's almost 4x7, something like that. And it was fencing. And basically it was something that my daughter used in one of her installations. And so this fencing was then used to keep the dog in the yard. And I thought, well, that would be a really good a thing to be able to hold like little pictures and stuff. So I better play that. Okay. Let's see. So there it is.
Yeah, that looks good.
What the hell? No, I'm losing it. Well, anyways, let me play the recording. Oh, heck.
Take your time. Take your time, Martha. It's okay.
Okay, I got it.
You, Martha.
Remember,
Whoops.
put it down on the table when you got it ready to go.
Okay. The name of, I wanted to focus on the piece that I made for Place for myself. And the name of my piece is Threads That Bind Me/Us. And the word bind means constrict, be strict, constrict, but it also means strengthen, stronger, made stronger. So that's what I see in Place. I see that the vehicle that Place provided for me to be able to bring me to where I'm at right now. In the last 5 months, it has helped push me through sort of helping, like having a baby, somebody that helps you that process. And for me, that's what Place did. It put me right there where I had to produce something, and not have to in the sense that I have to do it or else they're not going to like me. But I was doing it for me, just like coming up, just like speaking right now. I'm doing that for me. And why for me? Because I have severe anxiety about public speaking, severe anxiety. I'll do 6, 7 people, but there's no way I'll do a whole bunch of people without passing out or something. So I wanna focus on why I wanted to do this piece, because my great grandmother here, who her name is Benita, was a single parent like me, or me like her, and not knowing who she was until about 5, 6 years ago, when I'd see this picture of a lady and another young girl and a little boy, and one day I finally asked me, "Who is that?" And they said, "It's your grandmother," and I'm like, "Wow." So the acknowledging of her was she's acknowledging of myself, and I bring that up because in a lot of ways that has never really, women who were single were looked as, oh, like inferior. There must be something wrong with them, or they wouldn't have been left. And so her story, my grandmother, who had, 15 children, and dying at 61 years old. I mean, she looked like 81 years old because of the amount of what she had given, of just can't even fathom that. And then here's my mother, Genevieve Zamora, who, thank God, she gave us 3 meals a day. And I remember telling my mom that I was just appreciative that she did that, because sometimes I also knew children didn't always get that. So this picture here is a picture I used to draw when I was a little kid. I always drew a house with trees and flowers, pathway, but I never put people in it. And I'm sure that was other reasons there why I didn't do that. And this is a picture of me on the tractor with my cousin, who passed away like at 39 years old. And I was probably like 5 years old, but the inspiration was also nature, because my grandparents were farmers, and luckily for us, they provided us with land. So my dad built the house on that land. And so we didn't have to go from camp to camp. We had a place to live. And I have lived here for 42 years. And though I had a place, and that was always a big thing at the back of my mind, because I knew that if anybody was going to get thrown out, it wasn't going to be me. Back in the day, when you don't like it here, then there's the door. So that was a huge, so I've always had a place of my own for the last 42 years, but inside of me, I was very disconnected from a place of my own. I depended on external things, beauty, trees, beautiful flowers, beauty. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it never, always an emptiness, always that trying to fill it with work, food, alcohol, drugs. Too old for affairs, but I got those in there too. You're never too old for affairs. So anyways, that's what the piece is, and enjoy. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Cool. That was wonderful, Martha.
And I just want to thank Cynthia for providing the vehicle for not just you by yourself, because it's taken all the women around you that have participated through the years, Pat for opening up 7 Gen so that could happen, Jilly for coming down each week when there's no way. I mean, and then going back the same night, driving back to the Bay Area. But I waited for something like this for a long time, because I don't fit the bill. Like, I have a significant other, or that I had grandchildren at that time. And I don't participate in religion, so that leaves me out of that boat. And so I waited. And so when the opportunity came up, I said, I'm in, no matter what. Not an easy freaking thing to do is all I'm gonna say. Shit. Art is a piece of cake. That I've never done anything like that, but it's a piece of cake. It's being present to the moment and to what's going on in here and around you. But not for the wimpies, that's for sure. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Martha, for being so real. I can't wait. I need photos of your piece, because I haven't seen all your guys' work, and the last time I saw that, it was a grid. That was it. So, wow, good job.
1 week. It took me less than 1 week to do it, but very labor intensive.
Yeah.
Very labor intensive.
It's paying off. It's stunning. Okay, so now next up is Jilly, who you met earlier. And Jilly, are you ready?
I'm all ready. And thank you, Martha.
Yes.
So So I was asked by Cynthia and PAZ to be a support for PLACE in the Central Valley. I was really excited, thinking I would be more of a tech support in the background, mainly helping out with Zoom and mainly during doing this remotely. I said yes, of course. And as soon as I said yes, the job opened up beyond its original scope, and I fell into it with open arms. I am so grateful for this fateful opportunity that has enabled me to step into leadership, surrounded by an outstanding team of mentors. As you can see, not just the leadership, but the cohort is just amazing. I have loved every minute of helping with tech and being part of the workshops, holding space and supporting, building pieces, and just getting to know these women. I had no idea how powerful these relationships would be for me and how all of this would impact my self-esteem and lead me to creating my own peace and place of our own peace. Soon after saying yes and realize, oh, next slide. Soon after saying yes and realizing I would be going weekly to Livingston, I had a dream. In this dream, I was in the center of a web of ropes and knots, surrounded by light. The ropes were supported by many ancestors, handing down lessons written in the form of knots. Each knot expressed the beauty of that particular ancestor and their personal language of knotting. I did not understand, but the feeling was that these knotted ropes were gifts. Next slide. Lovingly wrapped in these ropes, surrounded by the language of knotting, I was being guided closer to the center and closer to me. As the lines got closer to me, they began to get tangled and confused. They literally looked tired, old, and frayed. The ancestors told me this fraying was because I had lost myself. Next slide. They stated, I believed I lost my ropes, and with that, my ability to express my individual language. I had gotten entangled in others' ropes and stories. As a result, my life became much harder and full of effort. I believed in the illusion of disconnection. I believed there was something wrong with my ropes, myself, and my individuality. I believed I did not have the right to my ropes and did not belong, needing to be fixed and reconnected. Next slide. They told me I have always had my own ropes and language, and there is no need to reconnect. The ropes have been there all along. They asked me if I understood and if I can trust this. I said I did not know. They told me I am light and love and began handing me ropes. They told me it is time to begin knotting and writing my personal language. I tried to tell them I did not remember my language or know what I was doing and did not know how to knot. They assured me that I will be supported and guided and to just knot from my authentic self. I began, the language of my knots flowing through me and out of my hands, glistening like drops of iridescent gold. I was frightened at first, feeling unraveled, and then I began to accept the flow. I began to accept I am an integral part of life. Next slide. As I begin to accept myself with compassion, empathy, and love, I was being told the next generation will also be able to accept themselves with compassion, empathy, and love. I was told the tenor and language of my knots will be handed down as guides. I was suspended in light, ropes everywhere, and another voice said, the shift is happening. Keep nodding. And then I woke. Next slide. I was stunned at the vividness of the dream and pondered the knots all day. That evening, I went to an art reception and workshop at the San Francisco Public Library. I did not look at the list of workshops, artists, or performances. I walked in, past the band playing on the first floor, and wound my way up to the second floor, following people streaming into a workshop. As I walked in, a person was handing out rope and offered me some. I hesitated, thinking that this was some kind of joke, and asked, what is this workshop? They stated, Wendy Chin is giving a demonstration. She is a rope artist and wrote the book, The Year of Knots. Thanks, I replied, grabbing the rope with an air of, well, of course, I knew that. When in my head, I was like, am I still dreaming? This is nuts. Wendy began speaking her language of knots as it related to her art. At the conclusion of the talk, she taught everyone how to make and create a simple knot. Truly amazed at not just the synchronicity of it all, but at her art, I bought the book, knowing somehow knotting was going to be my place of her own piece. Next slide. So the process of combining knots into my work has been a messy one. My ropes are dangling and feeling frayed. And yet I feel I am exactly where I'm supposed to be in this ongoing piece and process that is unfinished and will keep going. Showing my work at this point in the making process is a moment where all my fears of public acceptance and humiliation is poignantly present. I am learning to take a breath, listen, and allow everything to just be. When I slow down, I know I am supported and am in deep gratitude, even if the process is uncomfortable. Falling into the dream, falling into the workshop, and falling into leadership with Place and 7 Gen are events that feel like messy divinity, miracles, and awe-inspiring moments that are ongoing. I am a work in process too, and progress. Thank you, Place of her own. I am excited to be experiencing what it is to be becoming.
Live life again. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jilly.
Thanks.
I love your dreams and the reality, walking into the library and having somebody do stuff on knots. Thank you. So next up is there's some noise and I don't know who it is, but okay. PAZ, so are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So next up, and this is the final artist, and after that we'll take a break, is PAZ Zamora. So take it, PAZ.
Okay, just first of all, it's very humbling to be part of this evening tonight and for all that you've heard and all that was shared. So I just want to express my gratitude. For me, place of my own is always shifting, but in my heart of hearts, as 7 generations coming home has become a place of my own. Next slide. And just very quickly, 7 generations coming home was birthed the idea during the pandemic when we were sheltering in place and doing a residency with a place of her own. And we used found objects. And so I used the clothesline that my mother would hang the clothes out on. And it was, to me, a metaphor for healing and airing the dirty laundry and the secrets sometimes that come with trauma. And what would it be like to have a place where we could start cleaning things out and freshening things up? Next slide. When being in place, you really go into your family patterns. Excuse me, I'm going to close this door. Sorry, my husband's in the other room. It's echoing. Being in place of our own, we really explore generational trauma. And before I was in place, I didn't understand I was in like a tree in this forest, this old forest that stretched back so far with all this generational trauma. And so what is it really like to be healthy? And so for me, part of birthing place was exploring this idea of healthy. What does it mean to be healthy? And that it is made up of the 2 words, heal thy. Next slide. And heal thyself is what came up for me because I was always an activist. I was always in the community. I was always pushing to change and help young people, especially. And I was running around with this big gaping wound in my own self, literally. metaphorically that I wasn't paying attention to. So in place and being on the land during the pandemic with my mother, who was alive at the time, and my sister here, who was in recovery, this installation piece became a point of conversation to begin to say, what is it that is important as far as our own healing? And for me, it was the roots of my family, because I love them so much. And I know that there's many other families out there like mine. And then also for my sister, it was her spiritual path. So it was heal thyself, one woman at a time, was what came up. Next slide. So I started to reimagine the house on 7 Gen, my mom, and I knew that when she passed that the house would come to me. I don't have children, my husband and I, so I'm just stewarding it right now and getting it ready for the next ones who will be taking it over, with the intention to try to keep it in our family, and that hopefully it will remain a place of healing, and also a place where the community can come and use this space and rest and create and come together. And those rocks there, that's part of it. I've been doing a lot of installations. You might just think, oh, she's doing a pretty rock piece. But each of those are prioritized. If you do a vision quest, they put you on the hill with your prioritized. And for me, each of those rocks is a prayer, a dedication to someone in my family, community, or friends who have passed or are still living. And so those were from my father, who brought them down from the foothills here in the Central Valley. And so I asked the question, can art heal a heart, a home, and a community? And that's what's been part of my exploration here at 7 Gen. Next slide. And so just, asking the question is, how do I engage in my own healing? How do I engage in my own family healing? Because there's still a lot of, when trauma is not healed, it becomes trauma. And so there's a lot of drama still, and especially around addiction. And there's a huge meth issue all over, but especially in this community. And just like, seeing the generations that have been behind me getting caught up in the prison industrial complex and caught up in the drugs, and knowing them when they were little babies and they came into this world whole and so beautiful, and what happens to us because of the way the system is set up. So I also look at how does 7 Gen as a place of my own engage the community, because I feel like if I'm starting with myself, it kind of starts resonating out. Next slide. And so for 7 Gen, the focus, it's always evolving. It's very humble beginnings, is art, culture, family, community, and being together. Next slide. And for me, it's one of the core parts of what I want to create here at 7 Gen in this place is self-expression, especially for the youth. These are young family members who I do tons of art classes, and one day I hope to do it in the community with mothers in the park. But these are all family members who have been creating art with me. Okay, next. Because I feel like they need expression, they need freedom to be. That's my little nephew, great nephew, Ami, and that's the sense of freedom and expansiveness that he feels when he comes, that he can experiment, play around, just have fun and be a kid. Next slide. Also, this 7 Gen is a dream for me, is to have it be a space for my family to gather and create. And right after my mother passed in 2021, we did a small project called Four Sisters and our Dia de los Muertos. And so it was my cousin Esther, Stella, Martha, and myself. And we had a small gathering, and we did installations on the land. I had a friend who had lost 3 members of her family to COVID. Also in the factory here in Foster Farms, we had a big outbreak, and I think it was like 9 or 10 people died. And so just holding space for that as we were coming out of still in the pandemic, but coming out. Next slide. Also with Cynthia, she has been very instrumental in mentorship in helping provide some of the programming here, or not programming, but just the intuitive collage making. We did this on hybrid via Zoom, and so inviting friends and family to participate. Next slide. And also I want to just shout out, you met Cueponca Xochitl, but Dr. Cueponca Xochitl Sandoval and the Indigenous student activists, Cueponca just like open arms, like, can we connected, and it just happened so to be. And she's like, well, would you like to do an elk drum making class at 7 Gen? And I'm like, oh my God, of course. I was so honored. And that's Chunya, one of the cultural bearers from the Choctaw community. Next slide. And this elk drum making class involved a lot of family members, biologically, community members who had been working together. And so it was very beautiful. And this was a network that the Indigenous Student Association at Stanislaus State and Cueponca have been, and others here, other leaders, Jazz, Elvia, and there's others probably here on this Zoom talk, that they have been doing their work. And so I just want to say how honored that we could host it here at 7 Gen. And my hope is to continue to hold space in that way for community to gather. Next slide. And the drum making we actually came back. Cueponca brought Chunya back, and we actually learned traditional songs that then we did at the Indigenous Students, Indigenous Peoples Day that was sponsored by ISA, and Cueponca had organized. And I say that because I think at 7 Gen, my hope is that it can be a safe space to connect, to learn, and to share. And then to be able to sit at a drum and drum like this, oh my God, it's an amazing experience. And that's my cousin right there in the drum with me. And we would have never have been able to do that. So I just want to honor that. Whatever 7 Gen does, it's with the community as we walk together. We walk at the speed of trust and love. Next slide. And lastly, this was another thing that happened because I still work in the Bay Area. There's a lot, the Bay Area is a very resource community. It also has a lot of inequality and harm that is being happening in the community, and displacement, etc. But I also feel like with Cynthia in place, and that there's also this connection that's forming. And this was another, during the pandemic, right in the middle of it, I want to just recognize Catchlight Photography, because they brought artists together from around the world. It's called Artists Against the Infodemic. And we were able to get the city of Livingston at my park, which is 2 blocks from 7 Gen, to host a temporary installation. And I hope that at 7 Gen, we can continue to cultivate resources, cultivate that kind of support, cultivate those connections and networks that will help us go further together. Because like was said earlier, there's a lot of isolation, and it's scary to be out there on your own doing this. You can't do it by yourself. I need community, we need community. So next slide. So I want to just thank you all. And if there's any more information on 7 Gen or possible collaboration, please contact me at paz.heal.die@gmail.com. And I also want to just say again, deep gratitude to Place of Our Own, the Inaugural Cohort, to Jilly, and also to ask for continued support for the work that Cynthia in particular does at Place, because literally, I think we need to move away from this idea of artists not being able to be sustained in doing this important work. So I just want to thank those funders who have supported A Place of Our Own, and also encourage them to talk to other funders and encourage them to think outside the box around how we connect through art and culture that really is trying to be at the roots in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, PAZ. Thank you for saying that too. Just to plant that seed even further. Yeah, a lot of this work, like PAZ, PAZ luckily has a good job, so she didn't ask us to pay. The funding's very small, and we're pioneering this kind of work with art. And we could use some ideas for funding and partnerships and things like that. We're very grassroots, but I don't like to say that because then it looks like we're not big, but what we're doing is big, but we're doing it with very few people. So we always need help for sustainability and to grow. So thank you, PAZ, for sharing that and giving a perspective. So what we're going to do right now, first of all, thank you, all you amazing women, for your shares and your honesty and just the authentic need that's out there, and the way you having just embraced all the teachings from PLACE and how hopefully it will help you creatively. But what PAZ brought up is really important. The fact that we were able to do this work with these women, intergenerational women in the Central Valley, inspired me to bring together all the cohorts from the different years. And what inspired me was when the 2023 group was going through the family patterns, some of them were asking for advice, like how did the alumni go through this? And Ron, who's on this call, and Emily just jumped in immediately to give them advice. And I just felt like they were being their big sisters, even though age has nothing to do with it. So I just thought so my next goal for the next 12 months is to bring the alumni together to find this collective voice, because as women find their voice, they become very powerful. And if they learn how to work together, we could shift the needle. And that the women really have to be supported in leadership development. And we're doing a feminine leadership development with the help of Deanne, Glenn, and other people, but Deanne's like pivotal for us, because the world's going to stay as crooked and sideways as it is until we can find our voices together. So thank you. I can't wait for you guys to meet each other. So what we're going to do right now, if you want to stay on with us and be in conversation, we're going to take a break. It's 8:06, so we'll come back at 8:10, 8:15. And I'd love you guys to meet each other and chat with each other and ask questions. If anything bubbled up for you during this time, I encourage you to just speak it, because if it bubbled up for you and it's your intuition, you're supposed to share something, whether it's a compliment, a comment, or a question. And that goes on both sides from our artists too. If you want to ask the audience something, please do. But also, if you need to go, because we realize this has been 2 hours, our feelings aren't hurt. It's okay, we understand. So you're welcome to go. But the people who know me, I'd love to stay just so I could talk to you for a minute. Like Karen, I want to introduce you to Bronwyn. Yeah, so I'm going to take a break. I just got to go get something to drink, a cup of coffee, and then come back in. And yeah.
Everyone, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I know, everybody cheer. That's what you're good for, Ron, is that part. Thank you.
Yeah, like shake it off and like really like take in the love of the community here and congratulate yourselves. Y'all did such a huge thing today. I've been in your shoes and I know what it's like to be in the mess, have the anxiety about the artist talk, and then like try to get everything done on time. It's a huge feat to not only make the art, but to make soulful, real art. And it doesn't matter what level of skill you have. The true thing about this experience is that you go into you and dig deep and speak from that place and create art. That's not for the wimpies, as Martha spoke so eloquently earlier. So brava to all of you. Much love. Mwah.
Thank you, Aaron. I hope you're going to stick around after.
I will, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Cynthia.
Thank you. So I'll be right.
Hey, Lisa, good to see you.
So glad to be here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Make my heart sing.
Billy, what is this? Your artist talk is like, this is like number 3 or number 4. You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran, and I still can't. I mean, I'm so impressed, like, PAZ and Cynthia and Jazz, they can talk. And if I did that, I would be talking till tomorrow morning, just would go on and on. So, yeah.
You know what I really liked about this iteration of the artist talk? Everybody had their own way of delivering that. Some of us sang, some of us had a recording, some of us read off, what they wrote down, some of us improvised. I love the diversity of that, because it gives permission to speak the way that we want to speak.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. And the nice thing about working with Cynthia and like this whole iteration of place is that there's no, the only theme is what would, your place, what would it be, as opposed to, having a strict order. Even the timing this time was much looser, which was kind of nice, I think, for people to be able to express their processes.
Yeah. And from the facilitator standpoint, Cynthia, I imagine you have a lot of lessons you learned with this round too.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I tell you, if Jilly didn't go down there, because to turn on the equipment it wasn't easy. This conferencing equipment stuff, she had to go down there and turn it on because nobody could do it. I mean, it was just, we found out that Jilly has this tenacity with technology. Like she just stays with it until she gets it.
And I'm not techie. I mean, really, honestly, I'm not a techie. It's just that I refuse to fight with technology. Inanimate objects, I call it.
But I'm just thrilled that all the artists are so open and honest. And when vulnerable is such an overused word, but that's what this was. And that's why we had a general time idea, but they got too nervous about the time. I just wanted them to say I just wanted them to use their intuition. And I feel like they all did very much. Even Martha.
Well, what I notice is that, maybe perhaps not having that time restriction, like helped the women step into more self-agency and self-leadership. I got the stage time. I'm going to make it what I want it to be. And maybe that's the lesson we learned with this iteration. I'm sure there's a lot more lessons we learned, but that feels very different from the cohort I was in and also the cohort I facilitated. Like the time restriction got really, people really got hung up on that.
Yeah. Karen, turn your mic on and come on. Can you come on screen? So there's a woman, so Karen, we met because she came to the 2022 talks and she started talking to me about public health equity and helped me understand that that's what we're doing. We're actually putting our foot into, we're creating public health equity through healing. And but she just moved back to Australia. But we can meet on Zoom probably.
I'm always up to meet with you, and today was just so beautiful. Like everybody, just the biggest congratulations to what's happening and what you've done together. I'm so grateful you've shared it. Health equity it's bigger than health equity. Often health equity in public health is lacking attention to justice. And it's pretty clear that the process and outcome here is way deeper than that.
Can you turn your camera on, or would you rather not?
I've got things going on in the background with other. Yeah,
that's all
I'm
right.
really sorry about that.
So I'm hoping
I
that
would love to.
that Karen would become part of our future conversations with all you guys.
That would be an honor. I would talk with any of you anytime you want to.
Yeah. So Iran is from the 2018, and then she came in as a facilitator kind of in training, but then she ended up being a facilitator in 2020. But Iran, I'd love you to talk to Karen at some point, and all of us actually. Just because I'm trying to move place into a bigger framework than just the arts, because what we're doing is way bigger. And I really get that now, because a lot of people are trying to do healing, but they don't know how to get at the roots. Like, they can feel better for a moment, but then your stuff comes back unless you look at your stuff. And I always love PAZ's metaphor about the wounds. Like, you really have to look at it. You have to explore it and really clean it out, and so you have to look and see what's there. Because if you don't do that, you could put band-aids on yourself and feel good for a while, but the wound never goes away. I love that metaphor.
I think PAZ said this, unhealed trauma becomes drama.
Drama, yeah.
I think that's so on point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you guys come back in, I'd love to know how you know about PLACE or what brought you in. Like, I see Leanne on the screen. I don't know who you are. I'd love to meet you, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi. So I'm Leanne DeChico. I heard about the talk today because I follow Jazz on Instagram.
Cool.
And I saw a post about this and I thought that sounds really cool. Why not? And this was so amazing. I'd never heard of PLACE before.
Yeah.
And this was so incredible. It really resonated with me and like my, personal sort of healing and art making journey.
What do you do?
I'm a printmaker.
Ah. What made you follow Jazz?
I think I found out about her maybe through these events that I help organize called Women to Women in Fresno. I think that might be where I heard about Jazz, or through another artist friend of mine named Sam Lascano. I might have heard about Jazz. But yeah, just in the Fresno arts community, heard about Jazz.
Very nice. Thank you, Leanne. Welcome. You don't hear that much about us because we are small. We are small. But hopefully we're growing, because my idea the next 12 months is to, like, PAZ and Jilly have been alumni and now they're leaders. Now they're doing the work. Katie's stepping into that too. And Iran has stepped into that. So I'm hoping we can grow what we do, because I'm just so inspired by the difference I feel like it's making with the Central Valley, and the fact that they want to keep carrying on some version of what we're doing. Yeah, there's Deanne. Yay. I don't know what title to give you, Deanne, but she has been pivotal in us not self-imploding sometimes. Because when you work with each other and you all have trauma and triggers, man, leadership is tough. It could get really down and dirty, and Deanne she holds us to the fire, kind of, and to stay real, and to like, when we get triggered, you look at the triggers for yourself. Like, why is that coming up? Not looking at why it happened or who the other person triggered it, but what's in you that has to heal, right? That's what you usually teach us.
It's so fun. It's so touching, like emotional for me to watch this. I hadn't met the women in the cohort but I hear so much about them. So hearing them speak and present was, you know, inspiring. And I just feel so proud to be part of it and you know, sort of work that you and Gillian have done. As I say, I admire it so much. So I'm really happy to be here to support you. And you've done so well. It's amazing.
Thank you,
So-
Dee.
Yeah, Deanne lives in a rather remote part, like an hour away from
There's the,
Seattle.
there's the my window.
So
Yeah, it's an hour north of Seattle.
yeah, she's building a retreat and sanctuary up there, so maybe we can go at some point. But that's why her internet's a little choppy up there.
Yeah.
And I met her because she's a cousin-in-law of Sherry Arai DeBoer, who has been a place supporter she's been helping me with grants and things for 25 years. And we both met each other at Asian American Women Artists Association. So Deanne was related to her, and Sherry called me and said, do you want to meet Deanne? Because Deanne's an intuitive healer. Yes. So, oh, Elvia, why don't you come on and host that? Please.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I think it would be a great transition to kind of like either provide something what Cynthia kind of mentioned, right? Like sometimes when we talk about these like heavy themes of, you know, recovery or healing or trauma, you know, I think it's definitely something that brings out a lot of emotions and thoughts and even some connections. So I'm not sure if folks want to take some time to like speak on like what resonated with folks, or if there's any questions about the process and how we got to where we did. Anything like that, I think would be interesting, especially for the artists who, you know, or yeah, folks who worked in that process.
I have a question for the artists who spoke today, and anybody can respond to my question. I'm sure all of y'all at some point in the process was like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. So when you found yourself at that point, what helped you to get past that instead of, you know, I'm quitting, like, you know, I'm a wimp, you know, how did you guys get through that?
It's okay to admit if there was a point where someone said, what the hell's going on?
Hello again, everybody. Thanks for having us. As I'm nursing, Guishin, in the spirit of intergenerational, Guishin would like to say something if that's okay.
Oh,
Hi, everyone.
hi, Quishine. Hello, Quishine.
My ear hurts. That's why I'm putting some cinnamon on my ear.
Oh,
Yeah.
we hope you feel better.
So a way to test my, you know, skin to the skin and get on camera. So yeah, in terms of answering your question, I mean, I actually called Cynthia one day and I said, you know what, I'm not gonna go deep because I've gone deep so many times. I'm just tired of it. I'm just kind of over it. You know, I don't really have to rehash the past anymore. I'm done. And she's like, well, she's like, maybe, you know, this is something to pay attention to, and I completely respect that, and you don't have to do anything, but maybe this isn't for you. Maybe it's for somebody else that might, you know, help, that might resonate with some of the things that you've experienced. And when she made that, you know, point, something clicked in me, and I said, you know, my stories are not just mine. They are bound with other people, and giving myself the permission to crack open my rib cage again is okay. And especially because I love and respect and trust this community so much. And And so that it was noticing that resistance in me and asking for help really when I called Cynthia and I talked to you, Cynthia. So I really appreciate your gentle encouragement and your accepting of all that unfolds, and then giving me the opportunity to open up. And I did, and it was very powerful and healing for me. And I really appreciate that. And I think Martha, at one point she's like, oh, okay, now I can accept you because you're just too happy. So there's something underneath that's like for real here. Like, and now I get to see you fully. So I really appreciated Martha's like straight sincerity checks, and telling it like it is.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was a beautiful thing.
We call it her authenticity meter. She'll call you on it, which is good. I would encourage you guys to just turn your mics on, and if there's too much noise in the background, we'll ask you to turn it off. But I just feel like it's such a Western thing or corporate thing for everybody to have their mics off, but it doesn't encourage conversation. So see if you're too uncomfortable with it, you could turn it back off, but turn it on. Turn on your pretty faces too. Put yourself out there. Yeah. Oh. Has he seen Jazz's piece?
Not yet.
No, the kids are gonna
Saturday.
tear it up.
They go crazy.
I know, I have to make it like kid friendly. I think it is
Oh, right.
friendly. My daughter was saying that it needed like to be more walled because it was too cold inside. And Purla and Gregorio gave me 3 pieces of boards, like these nice heavy boards.
Wow.
And they fit perfect. And I have like, I could show you, but I would also like to answer the question.
You could do both.
Like
I'll pin you. You or spotlight you. Yeah.
As far as like vulnerability and like signing up for this, I think at times also coming in with like, I think I have an idea of what I'm doing. I'm coming in with my heart, but then having to be like, confront the discomfort, confront trauma, and at the same time realize that those cycles are still continuing. Just as an adult, I have like separated myself. That made me really, that was hard for me to deal with, because I think sometimes it's easy just to put it down in words or to put it on a piece and then say that's where it comes from, but to actually sit with it, touch it, like that was hard. And I really appreciated the meetings that we had, just with the group, because there was that intergenerational wisdom where many times I saw myself in some of our cohort sisters, and I even saw my sister in them, and I just had a lot of respect for that, because it also made me feel like I wasn't alone. And at the same time, like, I had personal calls with PAZ and with Cynthia, which I think really helped me create like a self-esteem, I guess, to believe in myself, when it was to like creating art and putting myself out there. And so I think that although it was heavy, I feel like it was something really empowering to be part of. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Something that I learned through being a part of the PLACE sisterhood is that, doing the artist talk and graduating into the PLACE ecosystem officially, that's just the beginning. The unfolding, the emergence will continue every day, every year. And who knows, y'all might be doing another artist talk in a year, and you can be in my position and be an elder sister and endow and inspire the next cohort. And I really love that part of this sisterhood, because I know what it's like to be in your shoes. And now you will also be the stewards to help guide future sisters who will come into the fold. So this is just the beginning. And I'm so excited for all of y'all.
You know, I want to, if you don't mind, Aran, so this concept of the love letters to myself, how difficult that is to write. If you guys remember, Aran's kind of the poster child for the resistance of doing it. So why don't you tell them about it?
I love telling this story because it's such a clear before and after. So during my cohort, I was so hung up on, you know, making the art perfect. And I know that pattern comes from wanting to control things, because I never felt like I had a sense of control, because I came from a family with alcoholics, a family where violence was normalized. So my need to control things was really, really high. And I just couldn't understand why I had to be vulnerable and why I had to break that down to truly get to what is underneath all of that. And so when we were doing the love letters to ourselves, I thought it was the corniest thing. What do you mean a love letter to me? You know, love is like a weird 4-letter word that wasn't really like a thing in my family. I just had like walls and walls and walls of resistance around that. And I think it was probably like the last day we worked on the love letters, and we wanted to celebrate that. And we wanted to memorialize that in a group picture. Everybody has their beautiful love letters up, and I'm just sitting there with nothing and like faking this smile and saying, yeah, it's fine that I didn't make mine. But I eventually did. And I think that experience was such a metaphor for where I was at the time. My resistance to, you know, being vulnerable and truly like exploring, you know, what's behind this resistance to self-love. And in place of that, why is there so much self-hate? And where did I get that? Because I knew it wasn't mine, but I didn't know what to do with it. And, you know, looking back, I know that was the portal. That was the portal I had to walk through to understand how to love myself. And no wonder it was so difficult for me to face all that, because I had a lifetime's worth of stuff that I just put away. I just put away and locked it away and never wanted to touch it again. So that nudge, that gentle push, you know, that felt like a threat. And so it makes sense that I felt protective. It made sense that I didn't want to knock down those walls. But over time, gently, I started to chip away at that, because it was undeniable. I had visual proof of like what wasn't working for me. And now when I read my love letter, it feels like such a beautiful totem for my healing process. It is the tangible proof that I do love myself. And surprise, the self-hate was the portal I had to walk through to get to really receive that wisdom from my ancestors. So I love talking about this, and I'm so glad Cynthia asked me to share it with y'all.
So do you guys have some questions for the artist? Something bubble up or something that sticks in your mind? Or just a comment?
I'd like to say something, if I can.
Yes,
can
please.
you hear me? You can hear me? As a white woman growing up with privilege, it's quite emotional to hear all this. I just honor Cynthia so much and what she's brought to that, and being able to see the alchemy between what Cynthia's got to offer and what the group, as it comes together, can receive. And the dance of that energy is just amazing to see. And, you know, we won't have world healing until we can heal this gulf between the people like me that have grown up with privilege and the people like this cohort. And it is just beautiful to see the authenticity and the willingness to show up and totally be present with your pain. And I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude to Cynthia for inviting me to come along and for sharing a lot about PLACE. We talk about it often, and the processes around it, which I've done some myself. And it is just a total honor to, be witnessing this and to be able to step into this. And I hope as authentically as I can show up and just listen and see these wonderful women that are really showing up with so much courage. And for Cynthia's courage to step forward and be able to do this work. I really salute PLACE, salute the process, but really salute this alchemy of everything that comes together and makes it possible. So, my heart is full of gratitude for being part of this sharing. And I thank you all.
Thank you, Bronwyn. A little background. So Bronwyn and I've known each other for probably 7 years at least, and Crystal Rose too. We met each other on Zoom before Zoom was a thing. And it was through Jean Shinoda Bolen, who's a Jungian psychologist. And there's 7 of us all over the world that meet once a month now. And Bronwyn's actually a naturopath. So she's actually treating me with herbs, and she's intuitive, and she is a soul collage trainer for Astral Asia, for all of Australia, New Zealand. So that's where I learned. I turned it into it cards because soul collage, it was almost too much for me. But I learned my collage technique through Bronwyn. And then of course I made it my own, and now I'm sharing it with you guys.
Can I share too, please?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. I've had the honor to be able to see pieces of PLACE for about 7 years now as well. And my immediate reaction tonight was, PLACE is now ready to go global. I really mean that. I've seen the iteration after iteration after iteration. And every time it's more powerful, it's more organized, it's more authentic. This was the most authentic, I think, of all of the summations of the apprenticeship, our cohort that I've seen so far. I was so deeply moved by the connections that you who participated tonight shared about reconnecting with your homes and with nature, with Pachamama, with your ancestors. I felt, PAZ, I believe it was you who showed 3 generations early on in the program tonight, and I felt all 3 of them feeling so proud and so grateful to the courage and the determination and the camaraderie that you all have over these years and in this cohort have produced together. It's an organism that is evolving. I think COVID was actually a great gift, even though it created a lot of hardship for many of us. But what it did was it forced the format of this program to be expanded beyond the original place that it took place, and it resulted in people who may have not been able to participate to now participate. I would like to see this recording shown everywhere. It's a smooth recording. The graphics were great. I don't know who put it together, but whoever it or they,
all the artists did it
uh,
themselves.
putting the actual graphics, it was amazing. 100 times more powerful and than it had ever been before, and professional, because I know when you have to present these things to funders, you know, they're going to look for certain things. They have certain biases, they have certain guidelines, unfortunately, that you have to conform to. But to me, the most powerful thing was the authenticity that each of you told your story and shared a bit about yourselves, where you'd come from, your connections, and what you experienced. And I believe that many women who would have the opportunity to watch a recording of this would really want to participate. It's scary. It's very scary. But you have the capacity to strike something really deep and collective about coming out of a colonialized experience that is so profound that many people just can't relate to. And I think I got it. I got it today. I've gotten it before, but today was the most profound time for myself. So I just really want to thank you all so very much. And I would like to continue to support PLACE and your activities and bring some aspect of it to, I live in Portland, Oregon, and I know there are people here who would really deeply benefit from it. And if I can in some way help in that way, I really look forward to that. Thank you again for your courage and your honesty and your great, huge and wonderful hearts and visions. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal Rose. I don't want to put, is it Gregorio? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I love that you're like nodding and it gives encouragement. And I don't know who you are. And I really, I want to say thank you for nodding.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gregorio. I'm the husband of one of the artists, Purla, and I'm really honored to have got a chance to watch all y'all's process making this art. So I've been kind of seeing the pieces of Purla's art like around the house sometimes, and I'm like, what is this building to? I have no idea. And so like hearing it and seeing it now in this aspect was like, oh, okay, this is what it is. I love this. But yeah, I also know a few of the other artists as well, and I'm really proud of them as well. I'm really proud of Dr. Composochi, Jazz Diaz, and Elvia. I had gone to school and met them at Stanislaus State, and so knowing them and hearing their artwork was really knowing where their art ended up and their process up to it was really it was like, oh, I know what they're referring to, or oh, I think I know how they got there. And it was very enlightening to hear. But it was also nice to hear the other artists as well, just to see how they got to their art, because that's something I don't think I would have gotten a chance to hear before. And so yeah, I was just like, I was really much like, oh, I am enjoying this person's story and how they got there, but I'm also like appreciating like, oh, this was definitely impactful. And I kind of wish I knew more about how they chose their medium. So like, I knew Dr. Composochi used the jarana, that's the little instrument they were using because they teach it and they taught it to me. And so I'm like, I love that they use that medium to sing. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And then Elvia, I know, is a really eloquent with words and is a poet, like natural, is a poet for real. The work that I got a chance to do with Elvia was made a little documentary, and we're going to do a documentary on like just migrant workers, but for whatever reason, it fell out. And so, you know, like we were discussing like, what could we do instead? And so the project ended up being, it's like, what if we just like, I'll film little parts of your poem that maybe could go along with it. And so we ended up just making this art piece where it was kind of like images that would signify from her poem.
Mhm.
And it almost didn't even need it. And Elvia is really great with words, and
Yes.
their art is really, really profound. And Jazz Diaz is a great mutual friend. I also live in Merced too, so it was like, oh, I don't know anybody in Merced, and they're like, oh, hey, we live out here. I'm like, what? Oh, hey, okay, that's cool. We got to do stuff, and it just turns out that like we hang out every once in a while, which is pretty cool too. And so it's been just an interesting experience to hear y'all's story. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you identify as a filmmaker?
Photographer, if anything. Filmmaker, no.
You're going Saturday, right?
Yes.
We should talk.
I didn't even know that existed.
Sure.
He was part of a litter, an accidental
Also,
litter.
I don't know if this matters or not, but Jazz Diaz also convinced me to take up the Arts and Commission district or position in our district. So I am the Arts and Commissioner of District 1 of Merced, and Jazz Diaz really talked me into doing it.
Yes.
I would not have the strength of doing that without their guidance. And already we've gotten some folks from the Youth Revolutionary Leadership Group in town, like making murals at the skate park, and they're gonna hopefully get a few more artists going that they want to promote. But
wow,
they've been really influential on just Purla and I. So I'm really grateful for their work.
Wow. I'm putting it out there. We haven't really done it yet, but I always feel like that I want to say to the spouses or partners of the participants that somehow once we can start convening or getting together, that there's a place for you too, like Michael. There's another guy, Nestor, who's actually God, what is he? He's an acupuncturist healer. And he wants, but I don't know what it is yet, but I want to say thank you. We're embracing you too as part of PLACE, Gregorio. I mean, just the fact that you're sitting there nodding in agreement was so beautiful. And I would love to talk to you because it would be, I would love to talk to you about maybe photographing the thing on Saturday. But maybe, I don't know. I could get hold of you through Purla tomorrow, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because I usually have that stuff lined up, but my partner moved to Puerto Rico, and he actually photographed our stuff since day one, since 2009. So we don't have that anymore.
Oh.
And I can't go there in person. Now there's less people. I'm actually recovering from some kind of concussion, which is I can't travel. So that's why we did the hybrid. But I also like the hybrid because, like Crystal Rose said, we could do it bigger. But I want to know that we embrace you too, not just the women, but supportive spouses and partners are good.
I mean, I feel like also I should submit some photos too. Just don't take my word for it that I'm a good photographer. I'll just submit some stuff too. Officially. Thank you, Jazz.
No, but Gregorio, like you've like photographed your dad's work since you were like a kid, and your dad's a muralist, and you've done a bunch of stuff with like at the university with Indigenous students of activism. Gregorio is also a founder.
It's a synchronicity. It's meant to be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I'm vouching for you.
No, don't. Let me try on my own. God.
That's Jazz.
As a commissioner.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say, I might have to get off in a little bit, but there's a book called The Hidden Language of Trees. And part of it is I really learned a lot from that. I think Cueponca had brought up that example in one of our gatherings. And it talks about how the roots of the tree are connecting under the earth. And there's a whole mycelium and there's a whole thing happening that strengthens the the trees and how they care for each other, even the ones that they keep that are dying, the new ones, how they self, and also the idea of they are stronger. Their DNA is to create an ecosystem where they can thrive, and they can thrive stronger together. And I think that a lot of the work that we're doing, I think she signed off now. I think she was saying like, why are you guys so, you're talking about being grassroots. Sometimes it's wiser to let those roots start to connect and to have them under the ground, because then when you're at a place where you can go for what you need to go for, there's already the trust and the communication. And it has been an interesting synergy. I mean, we did things here, but there was already things going on. And like Jazzy, I always would see her out in the community. And so there was already something there. And I even think like PLACE, this was the time when it was just meant to happen. But I think it's not just because it's like willy-nilly. I think it's because underneath we're continuing to form these roots, and those roots will help us. Sometimes that's what the powers that be, when you show too much too fast, they'll chop the tree down because it might be a threat. And so I think it's just like continuing to grow our ecosystem in a way that is good for us and good for the whole.
I'm kind of ready to.
I just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you, Paz. I think it is all synchronicity, how this all the people that showed up, how it came. Katie, if you're hearing me, you can sign off. I'm sorry to keep you on so long.
I want to say thank you, Boss, for bringing that up, because for me, since I started PLACE, it's been nothing but synchronicities for me, connecting everything to nature back to that. For me, has really been like the key pivotal point in my journey with PLACE and with Cynthia and with you. And I think for me that just opened up such a big place in my mind to notice all of these synchronicities in my life, and realizing that, like you said, the tree and the roots, like we're all connected in one way or another, but some people, are too caught up with the everyday world sometimes to notice those still small voices that speak to us, and speak to us through nature. And for me, I think that's why PLACE has opened up that place and that spot in my mind and in my heart to continue to digest it all, and to realize that we're all one, we're all one beings with Mother Nature. And just it's such a beautiful feeling of connectedness, like those roots of the trees, and how we're all so individualistic, but yet at the same time, at the foundation of it all, we're all one whole, as a collective whole, working together. No matter, like I said, with PLACE, it was so eye-opening for me to see the different age ranges of people. And I to me, that was a beautiful thing, to see so many wisdoms and hear different points of views from different, all walks of life and ages. And this for me was my first experience ever, opening up. And it almost felt like, it is therapy. It should be called therapy, like a small therapy session with a sisterhood of women who all have so much similarities, and we can all feed off of each other and learn from each other. And it was such a wild journey for me, because like even literally when Cynthia was telling us to make those letters to ourselves, I mentioned, and I made a comment that to me it felt like I was time traveling in a way. And it's crazy, because when I said that to Cynthia and I brought it up, like I had never in my life, for some reason, it's one of the things where you don't sit down and you don't realize that you have everything at your fingertips to do this, like I always thought to myself, like, why hadn't I ever thought to do this for myself as a little kid, and we can all do this. But the power of the collective sisterhood to me is to me so strong, and And I love that. And I think I mentioned when I spoke that for me, like feeling alone has always been like at my core. And I think it's an interesting thing, because I know I mentioned it to you, Cynthia, that I'm not alone, like physically, like my husband, son, my mom is here, my dad, but the feeling, I think, of isolation and of just being in this country with, just being so disconnected, sometimes, and not paying attention and awareness to our everyday life. And this just kind of like brought all that up for me, and just remembering that we have the power within ourselves to, like, we can time travel. That's what it was. It's going back to yourself as a little kid and telling yourself that, you're okay, and that we are going to be okay, and that, we hold the vessels and we're the power to our future and to our past selves. And it's such a beautiful awakening of so many beautiful things. And I know this is just the beginning, and for me, I'm so glad that I was able to meet you and Julie and Bas and Jazz and Purla. Like, I felt alone because I felt like I never felt like I had a community that I could feel understood by, if that makes any sense, until now. It's like you suppress all of these feelings because you feel like, oh, I'm fine, it's okay, I'm strong, I can handle it. And then one day you're like, oh my gosh, all these other people are also dealing with so many of the same things, and I'm not alone. And so the beauty that you bring to place is a beautiful thing. And I think so many people can benefit from that. And it should be called a mini therapy sisterhood session. And it should be extended to men as well, and I feel like men also, it's okay to express their feelings and to have a brotherhood, and maybe that's something that somebody like Gregorio or it could eventually unfold and become this beautiful place of community for all to share and to feel that we are not alone, and
we actually have a handful of men that have asked for it, and it's just about capacity. But I think that what you guys went through, they could go through the same. It doesn't really even have to be changed.
Yeah. And sometimes, like, I feel like as a whole that would be so beneficial, for everybody. And I know Jazz is working on something in Merced, so Jazz, spirit fingers for something of that to happen.
Yeah. And I should mention that Merced has a men's healing circle. So shout out to the organizers and founders of that group.
I didn't know that, so thanks for that. That's something.
Yeah. So you're saying about the word therapy. If we lived in Australia, we probably could use the word therapy, but we live in the US and we'd have to all get licenses and insurance. So
I think healing really is the word.
Well, I can't
Therapy
even
means
use the word healing in some sectors. If I use the word healing, then they ask me, are you a licensed therapist? So I have to use the word transformation, which to me waters it down because it really is healing. It's interesting.
Therapy is kind of like somebody helps you to fix yourself, which healing is taking everything in from ancient to future and everything in between. That's healing. It goes in every direction. I don't know.
And we're just giving tools. We're just giving tools, and you guys do what you want with it. Kind of. It's kind of like, what were you going to say, Julie? Sorry.
Oh, I just was going to say, Anna, thank you for bringing up the concept of time travel, because I really agree with you. And I want to even take it further that once you go into these childhood stories, and I think Cynthia touched upon this when she was talking about her grandmother, and Martha and PAZ too, about how those are their stories. And until you start unpacking those stories, that's when you can actually start to individualize, like, oh, I don't have to take these stories on. And Jazz brought this up, and, the traumas of the past can stay in the past and these stories. And I think that's really the crux of all this, in my opinion. And I'm just so grateful, coming from a very high drama background.
But Transforming the trauma of your past into the teachers. Not
Yeah.
just keeping it in the past, because it never goes away until you
Never.
realize that it was there to teach you something, and then you can release it, but you have to look at it. And that's the looking at the wound that PAZ always talks about. You really got to look at what's in the wound to clean it out.
Yes.
And that's the whole journey, really.
Yes. It is a whole journey.
Yeah. But it
Thank-
works.
It
I'm
works.
telling you, it works. I mean, there's, people over time will tell you that it works.
And
I mean, what's that?
I'm so thankful for that. And to me, it's like these synchronicities still, like, I mean, boss, like, what are the chances of your tree, on your land, it being a pomegranate tree, and just the symbolism, a quick Google search for the symbolism behind that, and us all coming together as, women there in that space. And it's these little things that I feel like people don't usually sometimes pay attention to, that they're kind of like, they're there for a reason, and that to me is what's so fascinating, is that I feel like not a lot of people pay attention to those tiny things, but the smallest things usually mean the most.
But they're the big things. And that's that found object art. Like Gregorio, I just remember your question was, how did they find, how did they decide on materials? And that's the beauty of found object art. And that is also the backbone of PLACE, besides the family patterns, is found object art. And the idea is you start to get an intention in your head of that you're working towards a place of your own, and stuff just shows up. Like those light bulbs just came to Purla. I mean, she could have found anything, but that was like the perfect metaphor for her. Jilly having a dream about knots and having all these webs in her life. And she goes to the library, and all of a sudden there's a woman giving a lecture on my year of knots.
Yeah.
It's every single time stuff just comes to people. And it's been hard since the pandemic, because I used to take people to the participants to a place called Scrap in San Francisco, which is this huge warehouse of stuff, like a Moscone Center, when they have huge exhibitions and whatever, conferences. Instead of throwing away all the materials, they donate it to this giant warehouse. So I used to take people there to find stuff. Like school teachers would go there and find free materials. But because of the pandemic, like PAZ had found 7 tablecloths in her backyard, with her clothesline. And another woman who I didn't show her pictures, but she was trying to make a native Lumbee cabin, because their cabins are log cabins in North Carolina. So she found this little this box that had glass shipping in it, and it was an A-frame. And then she found these little twigs on the side of the road in Oakland. Someone had just cut down a bunch of branches, and she made her little log cabin. And that log cabin was a time machine that you could go into, and your family could experience life before the colonization. So that's time travel and found objects. And it's every time it's a miracle. The found objects just show up. You just have to allow it, though. That's the thing about your intuition, is allowing things to come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, Cynthia. Thank you for that, because up until now, I've never had another person advocate for that, like now I'm like aware of it, and now it's like, whoa, like, what does this mean? What does that mean?
Well, it's largely born out of, like my family was dirt poor. My mom's family was dirt poor, and I didn't know we were poor, but neighbors would always leave broken things on our door. And for us, it was Christmas, because it was all kinds of stuff, broken jewelry, broken plates. I mean, I still love broken plates because I make earrings out of them, or jewelry or whatever. So I grew up with that. And a lot of artists of color tend to work with found objects. Like Dia de los Muertos in San Francisco is a massive warehouse, and every installation in there is life-size, huge spaces, but it's all found object. And then you incorporate painting or whatever. But what you guys did is largely an intuition building exercise.
I also want to point out too, what really resonated with me tonight too was Boss is saying heal thy. Like, Boss, did that just like come to you as well? Like, just one day you heard the word healthy, and then you were like, wait, those are 2 words in one. How did that come to you?
because I used to feel so much shame around, the more I started digging into my things that had happened in my family and feeling kind of overwhelmed. And I kept thinking, like, I worked with kids in Chicago that were in gangs, and whenever you talk to them about peace and like trucing, they would say like, why? I don't see it in my life. And I felt that with the word of like, okay, how do you get healthy now that you've seen all this stuff that's gone on in your family? And so it just came to me, heal thy, and heal thy world, heal thyself, heal thy Mother Earth. And people have all different things of where they're at in their lives. So, and that's why like I have a whole t-shirt line that says heal thy on it. I was like putting it on my caps, on my shirt, but it just resonated with me. So yeah, it was just from thinking about it and paying attention to the small things, like you said, right?
That really stood out to me. So I think I'm going to take that from you and
take it.
I mean, not take it from you, but use that in my everyday language now, because that's something that, you're not aware until you hear it. So I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you for that, because that really resonated with me, you saying that particular word. So
yeah.
And I think what PAZ is saying is really key, because that's what I'm sending to funders who won't fund necessarily what I'm doing, because they want to fund like civil engagement. So there's more services to create public equity. But I'm like, if you don't heal first, if you don't create healing as the foundation, you can't have equity, because people won't have self-agency to take advantage of any services that can come to them. They just won't take advantage of it. So then how do you get equity? So healing and strengthening, especially, I would say, well, people of color, and women of color in particular, but women too, just all women, you have to heal. There has to be a healing space for them. Yeah.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to jump in and say thank you, and also goodbye, because I have to head out. I'm losing light out here. Michael can kill me.
That's dedication.
But I have to get back to Merced. I'm currently in 7th gen. But just thank you to everyone who's like still here sharing, and it has been an honor to be part of this cohort, and also like into the sisterhood of place. So I'm excited to one day meet some of the other place members from the
It's in my
beginning.
proposal, so it's
I
written.
know.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
Well, we'll do it regardless. If we don't grant, we're still going to do it anyway. So, but let's hope for the grant.
Okay.
We have plans in July.
Bye, Jazz. Drive safe.
Thank you, Jazz. Thank you.
Sorry,
Oh,
I can't respond in chat either because my chat's broken.
Yeah, was I supposed to share something?
No, you're supposed to be just you.
Leave.
Oh, okay, because I thought we were going to talk about the Sister's Garden, but it's okay.
About what?
The Sister's Garden. I thought you said you wanted me to say something small.
That's weird. I was thinking about it. Yes.
Oh, okay. If not, it's okay.
No,
But, oh, yes. Okay. I was waiting for Cynthia. Oh, okay. So before I leave, a big part of things that I was sharing about finding my voice and finding myself in a sense of like self-esteem and reflection through place as an artist, and being an artist in the Central Valley. I applied to a grant here in the Central Valley in Merced, the Heartlands grant, to do a project called the Sister's Garden. And it is, I don't say it's place, but it is 2 murals, and one of them is built from place. And so I'm just excited that I received the grant. And so next year, hoping to do a mural inspired by place, and to culminate what this project can look like with place. So thank you, everyone, and I just wanted to share that news, because like I was telling Paz earlier, that I feel like a big part of me, having that sense of like almost like an imposter syndrome wouldn't have happened, because I got to have the opportunities to talk to the sisterhood, reflect with PAZ, Cynthia, and to get advice and just to navigate that and to be one of the folks who receives the grant. I think it's a big win for all of us. So thank you.
Pattern shifter. Yay.
Yay.
So
May I just make a quick statement? I don't know any of you. I'm a neighbor of Cynthia's, and she invited me to come tonight. And I put a chat note up before the break that I've just been incredibly moved by each presentation and the overall thing. But yeah, I want to say there's a word in Hebrew, mitzvah, that's usually translated as a good deed, but that doesn't take it in at all. It's more like a sacred good deed. Something you've done